Hello guys, in this video we'll be looking at the autosomal DNA predicted phenotype traits and the GD match results of a Karelian Eastern hunter-gatherer man. Now his Y-DNA was R1A1, which is also my Y-DNA. It's a very Indo-European haplogroup nowadays, but that's only because the Indo-Europeans have ancestry from Eastern hunter-gatherers. In fact, their paternal ancestry is of Eastern hunter-gatherer origin, and this haplogroup is more ancient. It predates the Indo-Europeans, right? So it's an Indo-European haplogroup now, but it used to be an Eastern hunter-gatherer haplogroup before. And this is his predicted phenotype with my NOSHACOT tool. He's predicted to have black hair, brown eyes at 49%, and Greek shaped nose at 51%. But the prediction for nose shape is kind of even between Greek shape and snub shape, so I depicted him with a straight nose here. But with Y-sec, he's actually predicted to have very dark skin, which is kind of deranged now. With snipper free, he's predicted to have a very high likelihood of white skin, which is why I actually depicted him with white skin here, because I just trust snipper free skin prediction much more than I do Y-sec. He was heterozygous for all the SLC45A2 variants, which means he did have the variations that have to do with light skin in Europeans, right? And he was homozygous for the light skin variations in SLC24A5, so that's very typical for Europeans. He was also homozygous for the Kittel G variation for skin color, that's also very typical for Europeans. So he was kind of like a typical European. There's a lot of Europeans today who have genotype just like him. When it comes to coloring related variants, he was actually not at all similar to like modern Finnish people or Karelians or Russians, because it's super rare for modern Karelians, Russians, Finnish people to not have any derived variants in BEH2, and he did not have any. And it's also pretty rare for Karelians, Russians, Finns to have only one derived allele in all the SLC45A2 variations, right? Also pretty rare for Northern Europeans, Northeast Europeans, but his genotype in terms of coloring is actually more similar to what you would expect French or Spanish or like Sardinian, ironically Sardinian, who don't have any Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry to score. In TAC1 variation of DRD2, he had the A1A1 genotype, which is a very archaic genotype, like Neanderthals, chimpanzees, monkeys, all kinds of monkeys score A1A1 here. This genotype is correlated with high risk of Parkinson's, and he had one of the derived no-go variants in DRD2's Pro-Financing Pro variation, so he was sort of a no-go learner, kind of intermediate. He had this genoset, 122 genoset, which increases the risk of baldness by 7 times. Very interesting. He might have, it's a guy too, so he probably did have male pattern baldness, which I associated with Mediterraneans actually. I think it's a Mediterranean trait. And he had the lack of empathy gene in OXTR. He had derived OXTR, which is what I call the sociopath gene. He also had the warrior genotype in Comte's Valmet variant, which means he had slower reuptake of dopamine, which means more dopamine building up in the system, very European genotype. And he did not have the East Asian alcohol flush genotype, so did not have flush when drinking alcohol. He did not have the European lactose persistence mutation, which means he was most likely lactose intolerant as an adult, but that's everybody who's not a Northern European today actually. And he did not have the European mutation that protects against myopia, so he might have needed glasses to read, for example, or see in the distance. When it comes to polygenic traits, he had a very super high risk score for Crohn's disease. He also had a pretty high risk score for coronary heart disease. He had a pretty average, maybe above average risk score for type 2 diabetes, a very high risk score for brain aneurysm. He had a pretty average risk score for Parkinson's disease. He had a very low risk score for asthma. He had a very low risk score for stroke. He had a slightly low risk score for schizophrenia. And he had a straight average, dead average risk score for bipolar disorder. This is what his scores with MDLPK11 modern. Now here you can see he's only scoring 22% EHG, and that's not because this is a Western hunter-gatherer or some kind of Scandinavian hunter-gatherer that I'm trying to pass off as EHG here. No, it's because the EHG category on this calculator is representing not EHG but something Caucasus related. So what it actually says is that he's got 61% Western plus Eastern hunter-gatherer like ancestry, and on top of that 22% Caucasus like ancestry. That's what this oracle is saying. And with the oracle, he's getting modeled as a mixture of Karelian hunter-gatherer plus Siberian Ice Age, and Siberian Ice Age here means ancient North Eurasian, or also 78% Siberian Ice Age plus Falkenstein Mesolithic, or all kinds of Western hunter-gatherers. So basically about 80 or 75% A and E plus 25 or 30% VHG is what this oracle is saying. This is what he scores with MDLPK23B. It's interesting that he's actually scoring some monkey and Neanderthal components. All the ancient people from Europe and Asia score a lot of these components, but modern Europeans and Asians don't score any, which is interesting. And with Euroginski 36, he's scoring mostly Eastern Euro and Fennoscandian. Those are the two biggest components. But there's also a pretty large Amerindian, American Indian component here, and Volga-Ural. And there's also a pretty large East Central Euro component. This is not something that any modern European or any modern person in general is going to score with this calculator. This is his result with the Euroginski 13. Now you will notice that here, as with every other calculator, he's going to score a lot of Amerindian, and that's because of ancient North Eurasian ancestry. Ancient North Eurasians had some affinities towards American Indians, and with the oracle you can see this is what I'm talking about. He's getting modeled as a mixture of Lithuanian plus Karelian, which is a Native American group. And this is his result of PanDNA LK12. Now, you'd expect a Eastern hunter-gatherer to just score European HG plus Amerindian, but he's actually scoring 7% Caucasus HG too, and because of that 7% Caucasus HG, he's actually getting modeled as a mixture of 3/4 Karelia hunter-gatherer plus 1/4 Samara Yamna from Samara. So, or alternatively, 88% Karelia hunter-gatherer plus 11% Kotia Skide, which is Caucasus hunter-gatherer. So he's got some additional Caucasus-related admixture on top of the Eastern hunter-gatherer. However, with Ancient Eurasia K6, I'm not seeing any clues to him having Caucasus ancestry. Actually, not at all. He's only scoring 0.3% Natufian. If he really had 11% Caucasus ancestry, as the previous calculator was showing, he would have maybe 5 or 6% Natufian here. And with the oracle, he's getting modeled as a mixture of, among other things, AG3, Afontova Garat 3, plus 44% Matala 12, and Matala 12 is a Scandinavian hunter-gatherer. So you can see about half Ancient North Eurasian plus half Scandinavian hunter-gatherer would result in this individual. And this is what he scores with Gedrosia K3. He's scoring 20% East Eurasian here, which is much more than modern inhabitants of Karelia would score. But this is because this is an ancient individual who did not have a lot of the modern West Eurasian drift. That's one of the factors, and the other factor is that he's got a lot of ancient North Eurasian ancestry, and ancient North Eurasians had a lot of affinities towards East Eurasians. And this is what he scores with G25. He's closest to Sami from Kola, followed by Russians from Lishukonsk. Now, if you did not know what Lishukonsk is, it's a little village in the very far northeast of Arkhangelsk Oblast, bordering on the northwest of Komi Republic, so it's a very far northern place. Not a lot of Russians live that far north. And with the oracle, he's actually getting modeled as a mixture of Balt plus American Indian, which is kind of what you've seen with Euroginski 13. So you see that relative to Northern Europeans today, he's got a lot of American Indian affinities. Thank you guys for watching until the end. You can actually download this sample in 23andMe format from a link which is in the description. And if you like what I do here on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe. Peace out, guys.